Well, Paul Keating really got a slap today. This former Labor Prime Minister, still influential in the party, is such a cheerleader for China, despite it being the world's most threatening dictatorship. Now, last week, he again sided with China in attacking Australia's defence alliance with the United States, an alliance the Albanese government is sticking with.
Australia is quite capable of defending itself. We don't need to be basically a pair of shoes hanging out of the American backside.
Well, we're obviously not capable of defending ourselves alone against China, which tells me the shoes hanging out of the Chinese backside are Keating's. In fact, Keating also backed China's warmongering claims to democratic Taiwan.
What this is all about is the Chinese laying claim to Taiwan. And the Americans are going to say, no, we're going to keep these Taiwanese people protected, even though they're sitting on Chinese real estate. The Chinese real estate is part of China.
That craziness copped him this rebuke from American Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, until recently the Democrat Speaker of the House.
That's ridiculous. It is not Chinese real estate, and he should know that. Taiwan is Taiwan, and it's of the people of Taiwan who have a democracy there. I think that was a stupid statement I have no idea about Keating, but I think it was a stupid statement to make. And I don't know what his connection is to China that he would say such a thing, but it is really not in the security interest of the Asian Pacific region for people to talk that way.
Joining me is the panel, Will Kingston, host of Fire at Will, a podcast from The Spectator on politics and culture, and Sky News host Danica De Giorgio, a regular host of almost everything on this station. Will, Keating has claimed that he got just $5,000 presumably each year in the 13 years he was on the board of the China Development Bank, has no commercial interest in China whatsoever. But gee, if that's the case, how to explain how he never appears to publicly criticise China, but very much does criticise the US, Taiwan and Australia?
Well, in the 1990s, Keating and Pelosi, actually, leaders of their ilk, they made a bet. They bet that economic liberalisation would lead to political liberalisation in China, and that bet has backfired spectacularly. China has got more repressive as they've got wealthier. But unlike the Pelosis and the Clintons and the Blairs, who have pivoted somewhat, he has doubled down and doubled down and doubled down, and he's now the gambler who is morally bankrupt. And it makes you wonder why he does remain just a useful idiot for China. And it also makes you wonder, and I'll add this in, why he will yell and scream about Gaza along with so many other members of the left, but they stay horrifically quiet when it comes to the extreme human rights abuses in China, from human rights suppression all the way through to the genocide of the Uyghur Muslims. It is morally abhorrent.
Will makes a point there that I very much agree with, Danica. Labor's tactic has been to say, well, Paul Keating was Prime Minister for his time, things are different. What Nancy Pelosi put a finger on is what he is saying is morally repugnant. And none of them actually come out and say, this guy is saying nutty, not just nutty things, but evil things.
Well, that's it. And Labor's turned a blind eye to it. No, well, he's a former Prime Minister. We respect what he's saying. He doesn't hold our views, but no. And that's typical of Labor because, they also try and keep this friendship. They try and keep this relationship with China without calling them out. So we can hardly be surprised that they're not calling out one of their own. Look, Andrew, I can't tell if Paul Keating is suffering with a serious case of relevance deprivation syndrome or if he's now just a complete grumpy old man. But at this point, I think it's a bit of both. I don't believe we have ever had a former Prime Minister be such a champion for China, be so enthusiastic about Beijing as Paul Keating appears to be. But his comments are actually dangerous. They are reckless and highly irresponsible, particularly given the sensitive geopolitical climate. I mean, he's out there saying that Taiwan is China's real estate. Well, let's not forget that China has been ramping up its threats toward Taiwan, particularly in recent weeks. It has been really testing the waters, all the while China is cozying up to Russia. I mean, these are countries that do not share our values. So whose values does Paul Keating share?
I don't, that's exactly right. It's the selling out of the values that I think Labor's got to speak to.